Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on this Friday afternoon. I'm so excited to introduce you guys to our new friends at Good360. As you all know, we have a really great partnership with Lowe's, and our favorite contact at Lowe's said, you guys really need to talk to Good360. And I'm so glad that they suggested that, because I had never heard of this phenomenal organization that does so much good in the world and really helps a lot of nonprofits do the same as well. So we have two employees of Good360 with us today. We've got Janet Thompson. She's the Vice President of Nonprofit Development. And we also have Damian Morales, and he's the Manager of Disaster Recovery. So they're going to share just a few slides and information about how it works and how you could potentially access in-kind donations through them. And we want to make this really interactive, so feel free to drop questions in the chat box anytime or unmute yourself and interrupt. We're a real informal bunch, so we just want to make sure you get the information that you need. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Janet.
Thanks, Becca. And informal, like the informal, that makes it a little bit more intimate. And that's our culture at Good360 too. We are a small but mighty nonprofit organization with a national footprint. We're headquartered out of Old Town Alexandria with a large presence in Omaha, Nebraska, where our large warehouse is. And we have partners all throughout the country that we will get into. And of course, I'm joined by Damian, who is our disaster recovery subject matter expert, of which is a very large part of what we do here at Good360. So without further ado, I'll dive in. And again, if you have any questions while we're presenting, please feel free to jump in and ask, or we can take questions at the end, whatever you're comfortable with. We want this to be a give and take and as valuable to you, because you took time out of your valuable day to spend it with us. So we appreciate that. So, okay, so I will go next slide. Okay, our mission. So in a nutshell, Good360 is the leader in product philanthropy or in-kind donations. We specialize in using non-food donations that are donated to us generously from our 400 donors, one of which of course is Lowe's. And we take that product and distribute it to our network of nonprofits across the country, of which as of today is over 100,000 strong. So what we like to say is that we like to close the need gap, that it's not necessarily a problem of not having enough, it's a problem of distribution. So we know that there are times where our generous donors have more than enough, and there's organizations and people that don't have enough. So we're trying to close that need gap. That's what we call a need gap, by providing those goods to empower communities and individuals across the country. And this statement, we like to say, what I just said, basically, we know there's enough. So we work to get those goods from our generous donors into the hands of our impactful nonprofits. And of course, as everyone here experienced, COVID did a number on everybody, right? In many different ways. For Good360, it was surprising. We went from distributing about $350 million worth of product in 2019 to $1.8 billion worth of product in 2021. So I see a couple of wows, and it's a wow to me too. We had significant growth over COVID, and that accompanies our partners like Amazon and our partners like Walmart that also saw an interesting amount of growth during COVID over the past 2 years. So we are kind of at a crossroads at Good360. I know Becca mentioned, I've never heard of Good360. We're hoping that will change. Good360 is the 14th largest nonprofit in America, and we want to start getting our name out there a little bit more. So, and this is step one towards that. So we're excited to scale, and part of that strategy is to engage with impactful networks like Coalition for Home Repair. I want to introduce my network to Becca's network, and that way we're able to see how we can collaborate together and capitalize on each other's successes and strengths. Oops, I went too far. Okay, so Good360 is a spinoff of the United Way. We originally, about 38 years ago, was the Gifts in Kind program for the United Way. And 38 years ago, we kind of spun off onto our own nonprofit. And since then, we have distributed over $12 billion worth of product to our nonprofit network. And we're very proud of that. We're very humbled by that too. We like to say at Good360, we're not on the front lines of service. That's what our network does. That's what you all do, right? But we take a whole lot of pride in being able to provide you with products at a cost much, much lower than you could get anywhere else. And that, we are a force multiplier. That way we can help you stretch your budgetary dollars further, and you can serve not only your missions, but the populations you serve as well. So, we could stretch the dollar of that single mother who's trying to make a decision between rent and sneakers for her son. Just some more metrics. In 2021, like I said, the 1 billion, we actually crunched the numbers and it came closer to 1.7 billion in 2021 of product. That impacted about 14 million people across the country. And we have an application of funds, which is a metric you'll hear a lot in the nonprofit space, as much of us are aware. So for every dollar that's donated to Good360, we can distribute $50 of needed goods in there. So we're very proud of that amplification and that efficiency. So why do companies work with us? Why are we the leader in this space? And in a nutshell, it's because we try very hard to be easy to work with, right? So to give you an example, a couple years ago, right at the beginning of COVID, Old Navy and Gap closed all of their stores. So their entire spring season was sitting there, not touched. And that does not stop time. They had to bring in their summer season. They had to bring in their fall season. So they wanted to donate their entire spring season to UNHCR. As we've heard lately, UNHCR is an amazing NGO that supports refugees. And the challenge is UNHCR has very tight restrictions and tight logistics on how they can receive that product. So it was a challenge. There was a gap between the easeability of Gap to give that product and the capability of UNHCR to receive it. So Good360 stepped in and kind of became a bridge to those two, right? We're easy to work with. Amazon and Lowe's will come to us and say, I have this much product here, no problem, we got it. We will go and get it, we will sort it, and we will redistribute it across the country. All you got to do is give it. So that's one of the things why companies like to work with us. Also because we take compliance very, very seriously. Like we want to make sure that we protect our donors, their product, their brand. We want to make sure that that product gets into the hands of people who need it, and that it is used in a way that is impactful, equitable, sustainable, and efficient. So some of those reasons why we've been successful in the past to partner with groups like Lowe's and Amazon and Walmart and all those big retailers. So why would you want to join Good360 as a 501c3? As I mentioned, we have a network of over 100,000 nonprofits. I should say 100,000 charitable organizations. If you are a 501c3, if you are a house of worship, if you are a Title I school, if you have an EIN number, you are eligible to become a member of Good360 at no cost. Membership is free. And once you become a member, you now have access to all of the donations that are available to you. And like I mentioned before, we are proud to stretch your budget a lot further. We want to get you the goods that you need in the time you need them. And we want to make sure that we provide value to our network of nonprofits. And when I say value, our model is to place what we call an administrative fee for every donation that you source. So for example, if you want to get a carton of soccer balls from Nike, that comes from our warehouse in Omaha, you're going to pay an admin fee so we can cover the shipping and handling to get that product to your door. And typically those admin fees range around 2% of the fair market value of the product. Another example is a truckload of Tempur-Pedic mattresses. Tempur-Pedic has been one of our amazing partners in the past. If you want to source a truckload of 128 twin size Tempur-Pedic mattresses with a fair market value of $180,000, you'll have to pay the admin fee to cover the shipping and the handling and the program costs of around $8,000. And so for some nonprofits, as you know, that can be breathtaking. And for other nonprofits, they realize that $62 for a twin Tempur-Pedic mattress that typically on the market will go for $1,200 or more. So again, those administrative fees are so that we can continue to provide these high quality products to our network, covering our costs and making our program sustainable in the future. So how do we get $1.8 billion worth of stuff into the hands of our network of nonprofits? And there's 5 channels, what we call 5 operational channels for you to get your hands on goods that you need, that the populations you serve can use. The first one is, as I mentioned, through our e-commerce platform. We have a large warehouse in Omaha, Nebraska. We have a large warehouse in Gallatin, Tennessee, and you are able to source cartons of product or even pallets of product directly from those locations. And that will be shipped directly to you. We have, like I said, like cartons of soccer ball from Nike. We have apparel. We have American Girl dolls, other toys from Mattel. So the product that our donors give us runs the gambit: diapers, home goods, school supplies. We try and ensure that we have a portfolio of goods that all of our nonprofits and the people they serve really need. The second way to get that product is through the truckload program. And the truckload program is for organizations that have gone through a little bit more vetting and a little bit more training, right? So like I said, any 501c3, any school, any charitable house of worship can become a member and source product, especially through our e-commerce channel. But once you start getting into groups that want to receive a 53-foot trailer of Tempur-Pedic mattresses per se, we need to make sure that you are good stewards of that product, right? We need to make sure that you have the logistics resources to receive a truckload in the 2 hours it takes to offload it. We need to make sure that you could do that safely. We need to make sure that you have the finances and the staffing at your fingertips to responsibly receive a truckload of product. Because as you guys may or may not have experienced, sometimes individuals will do the wrong things, even if it's for the right reasons, right? If you get a Tempur-Pedic mattress and you know the value of that Tempur-Pedic mattress, we need to make sure it goes to somebody who's going to use that and not somebody who's going to put that on market in the Facebook Marketplace or eBay or something like that, right? Because again, we want to protect our donors and their markets. So the direct truckload program, organizations apply to that program, and after some vetting, then the doors open up and they're able to receive a significant amount of product. The third way is what we call our retail match program, and that's where all the brick and mortar stores across the country are matched one-to-one to a local nonprofit. So our largest, of course, is the Walmart program. We also have a Bed Bath & Beyond program. We're piloting a Costco program. We're piloting a Macy's program. So we've done a Home Depot program in the retail match model. But basically, for example, for Bed Bath, there's about 1,200 stores across the country, and each one of those is matched with a Good360 nonprofit. So for 1 year, that nonprofit, after paying a nominal administrative fee, receives everything that comes out of that store that is eligible for donation, whether it's returns or excess product or whatever. So they go to that store, they pick up the product, and then they sort it and redistribute it out as needed. So that's our retail match program. Similar to the truck program, that requires a little bit more vetting, right? So every level up you go in the Good360 membership, a little bit more vetting, a little bit more training. We just want to make sure that the nonprofits that are receiving the goods are using it the way it's supposed to be used. The fourth channel, which is very near and dear to my heart, is called the Redistribution Partner Channel. So Good360 has about 70 what we call CRPs, community redistribution partners, across the country. That's Good 360 in the field. That's Good 360 forward. So if you are about 100 miles or less from a Good 360 redistribution partner, you will join their network of nonprofits. And you can, some of them have membership programs, some of them have build a pallet programs. The way our distribution partners get the product out into their communities varies greatly. But in a nutshell, you can go to an organization, for example, like Morning Day Community Service Solutions down in South Florida, and they will, for a modest admin fee, you can build a pallet of whatever you need, appliances, apparel, toys, whatever's available. So again, we have about 70 of those across the country, and we're growing. And then finally, which Damien will speak to a little bit more, is our disaster recovery channel. Disaster recovery is our largest managed program at Good 360. Basically, as many of you I'm sure are well aware, because in this space, we all deal with the rebuilding of homes and the rebuilding of communities after a disaster. You need to make sure you get the right goods at the right time, right? When there's a disaster, the last thing we need, Levi's, thank you very much, is 3 truckloads of jeans. We don't need 3 truckloads of jeans in the response cycle, right, of a disaster. Love your generosity, but let's put a pin in that and give it about a year when people are really ready to refurnish those homes. So Damien will speak a lot more about the nuances of disaster recovery channel. Any questions on those 5 operational channels?
Just a quick one, is Home Depot a current partner in the retail match program, or was that something in the past?
No, it was something in the past. That program was called Framing Hope. And some of the organizations here may have heard of it. It was a phenomenal program that was started by the Home Depot Foundation. But in the past 5 years, it has sunset. And as we're finding with a lot of our retail partners is what comes around goes around, right? It goes through cycles. We try to be as nimble as our retail corporate partners. So we're still very good partners with Home Depot. We receive a lot of truckload donations from Home Depot. And as new leadership is coming into the foundation, they're rediscovering the value of the retail match program. It's not the easiest program to manage. It requires a lot of time investment and personnel investment from the donor side, but they're finding the value of the retail match program. It's a lot better. It's a better footprint sustainability wise if an organization picks up the product at the store than it does sending everything to the return center, right? So it's on paper, it's a very attractive program for our corporate donors.
I have one more question too. Obviously, the biggest need our organizations have is for building materials. So yes. Also curious about Lowe's. I think when we talked last time, Janet, you said that Lowe's actually covers the administrative and shipping cost. Is that true?
Yes, in many cases, yes. So of course, we will do everything in our power from our donor development team to encourage our corporate donors. Thank you for your generosity and product, but can you accompany that with a grant so that we can make those admin fees as low or as close to zero as possible? Lowe's does provide a significant grant to keep those admin fees very low. Sometimes it doesn't get down to zero, but it gets to the point where now a nonprofit doesn't have to pay for shipping. That's usually what the first thing will go to a donor. Can you cover the shipping costs? Because as you guys are well aware, shipping costs in the last month have gone ridiculously through the roof. So our nonprofit partners, especially Lowe's, has been very sensitive to that. Not all corporate donors are as generous as others. So again, we try and keep those fees as low as possible so that our program stays sustainable.
And to that end, Becca, another large corporate partner that we work really closely with and get a lot of product from is Grainger. Mm-hmm. The way that Grainger donates, and this is really important for folks on the call to know, is they'll just basically send a truckload of unsorted product, some of which is really helpful, others of which is less helpful to rebuild, repair. So that typically happens through those redistribution partners that Janet referenced. Some of them, and Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, will actually have the capability to go through that truckload of stuff and sort out into relevant categories, which may include rebuild materials. So after this call and in follow-up, we can provide you with a listing, or Janet can, of those redistribution hubs. I would highly recommend that you all find if there's one in your area, because that could be a great, easy way to begin to engage with Good360 for the products that you need to help your rebuilding efforts. I'll also share that, as you all know, better than me, probably in most cases, it's really hard to get those rebuild materials, especially with transportation costs, the costs of lumber skyrocketing, all of the just various factors. And Lowe's has really stepped up and become a huge partner of ours. And there are other partners that we work with in this space, and I'll kind of touch upon that more in disaster in a second. But I just want to make sure that you all are aware that we do receive donations, even Amazon. Sometimes Amazon will also have really helpful product for you all, but it typically doesn't come in a truckload. It's typically unsorted.
That's a really great point, Damien. One of the other reasons why we're so easy to work with is we will take a large amount of a large variety of assorted materials. It's what I like to say is it's all about the sort. And even though Good360 only deals with new and like new material, we're not like some of our partners that do amazing work like Goodwill or Salvation Army. We won't take donated product from the general public in a used condition unless it's pristine. But that being said, when you're dealing with donations and excess product from corporate donors, and especially when you're dealing with returns, there is going to be what we call an element of usability. So we like to make sure our truckloads, our pickups, everything that we receive stays around a 75% usability rate. When it starts getting lower than that, we start getting, go back to the donor and see if we can find a solution, because our nonprofits are not trash collectors, right? You do not want to pass on the cost of disposal or recycling to our nonprofits. That's not acceptable. What we like to say is if you wouldn't donate it to your grandmother, please do not donate it to our nonprofits, right? We want to make sure that we donate with dignity.
Mm-hmm. Kelsey, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I just actually wanted to say we actually are a partner with Good360 already.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
In fact, I think of the list that you sent me, Becca, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are already in our network. So not surprising at all. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And we actually, we are a CRP, so we actually do some of the redistribution.
TCAC, yes.
Yeah.
There you
So
are.
for those of you on this call that might be looking for materials,
TCAC is
yeah.
not on the list, Becca. So we are very familiar with TCAC.
Yeah.
Glad to see you, Kelsey. Thank you for joining. It's a small world. Our worlds collide all the time, right, Becca?
Yep, for sure. And TCAC is a brand new coalition member. They just joined our network yesterday. So
excellent. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. Here's a footprint of our redistribution partners and 4 examples of our best ones. United Movement of Kindness out in Las Vegas. We have Rehoboth down in Mobile, Alabama. We have City Serve, that's in California and in Dallas. And we have Agape Distribution up in Sydney, Ohio. That's just 4 of the 75. And as you can see, there are gaps in our network that my team is constantly working to find strategic partners in those areas so that we can have more CRPs in the community. So, you know, every of the 1.5 million nonprofits out in the world today, or in America today, I should say, we want to make sure that all of them have access to product in the form of a community redistribution partner. So we're looking to grow and to scale. And then the truckload program, I touched on this a little bit. Part of the extra vetting is just to make sure that you have the space, you have the revenue and the financial fund resources, maybe a loading dock or a pallet jack, the material handling equipment. We just want to make sure that you are able to receive responsibly a 53-foot trailer full of product. As many of you may know, that is a lot of product. That's up to 24, and if it's double stacked, 48 pallets of product. It can pack a punch. And you know, if a modest-sized 501c3 doesn't know what they're getting into, offloading 24 pallets is daunting. So we just want to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you want a truckload of goods from Good360. And this is a quick slide about how to join, right? As long as you are equipped with your EIN number and you go to www.good360.org, swipe through our first banner, which is how we're supporting the mission in Ukraine right now. And then you'll come to closing the need gap. Click the blue button for becoming a member, and then click whether you're a 501c3 or a house of worship or a charitable organization. And very quickly that application goes through, and within 24 hours our compliance team will review your application and get you in the network. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Damien so he can do a deeper dive into disaster recovery.
Sure, thanks, Janet. Do any of you all have any additional questions for Janet before we slowly pivot? No? All right, you can always ask questions. So as Janet referenced, my name is Damien Morales. I'm the Disaster Recovery Manager for Good360. I've been with the organization for about 7 months now. Prior to that, I spent 7 years in Texas working statewide on all things disaster, working alongside government, nonprofits such as you all on this call at the local and statewide level, as well as some nationals. We at Good360, we really focus all of our time and attention on recovery, that short and long-term recovery, the time of disaster that you all are busiest in, that's getting the least amount of attention. It's not the sexy part of disaster, right? It's not the lights, the sirens, the swiftwater rescues. It's the mucking, it's the gutting, it's the frustrations of the homeowners having to go through all these bureaucratic processes. It's why am I still not back in my home? And it's you all and your volunteers and organizations doing the work, building the homes in sweltering heat or frigid snow to make sure that those children and those families have a roof over their head. We really take a holistic view of recovery. The last thing we want to do is set up a family or a survivor or a set of survivors for failure. We want to make sure that we're working with our partners that not only pass the sniff test with our compliance team, but really are taking a holistic view at recovery, that are making sure that the family can afford the house that they're being put back into, they can afford the taxes, that they want to stay, that it's meeting the needs of where they're at. And we really are focused on building resilience, not building back the way it was, but building back stronger and better. And I'll be honest, that's oftentimes hard when you're working with donated product because you only get what you get. But it's been really amazing to see just the number of corporate partners that are really, truly, and honestly focusing on sustainability and in a meaningful way. It's not just lip service, but they're actually really focusing on it. And that's including more and more product donations and the types of products that are being offered for donation. So it's really exciting. And I just want to share that with you all too, as you're also reaching out to donors outside of Good360 to say, hey, is there an opportunity for us to get better product that's more resilient, since we're all working in communities that are going to be impacted time and time again. Next slide. So this is really what Janet was touching upon earlier, but through the disaster lens. And we are going to be working over the next 6 months to a year with most likely Institute of Higher Education on updating and doing a deeper dive into this data. But at this time, roughly 60% of goods donated during a disaster end up in landfill. During Hurricane Harvey, as one example, I was the donations task force lead. It just basically meant I was trying to herd all the cats, right, across the state. And the number of truckloads that were just left by the wayside on the side of the road by corporate partners, by individuals, by faith-based organizations, by organizations that you would know of that you would think wouldn't do that, but did. I mean, we had pallets of panini presses, women's belts, left shoes, not right shoes, left shoes, prom dresses, gummy bears. And why? I don't know. And like, where does it go? And how is any of this helpful to rebuilding? And then only 12% of giving is allocated to long-term recovery. So we all know the frustration of, why are you donating during response? You're only donating food. Why aren't these rebuild organizations donating more lumber, more tools? And this really speaks to attention. only 80% of donations occur. Well, not only, I'm sorry, 80% of donations occur within the first 2 months of a disaster. So if you don't strike when the iron's hot, you're not striking, sadly. And something that Good360 that Janet referenced briefly brings to the table is we can take in a lot of product. And we do have a fairly significantly sized warehouse space in Omaha, and we're working, at least in disaster, on identifying and building our capacity of warehouse spaces around the country. And I'd love to partner with each of you, frankly, on this call to see if we can work to pre-position product in your communities if you're in a community that's prone to disaster. What does that mean? It means maybe half of it goes to you to distribute, maybe half of it stays for Good360 to distribute for your community to other community partners. It's all negotiable, but we're really looking to see how can we strike when the iron's hot? How can we capture that media attention? Capture that attention from the donor because they want the press release. They want to be able to go on TV. They also want to help. They're getting donor pressure. They're getting board, C-suite pressure. How do we capture that quickly, have the product in hand, and then be able to utilize it when it's needed most? And then, as Janet referenced earlier, right goods, right people, right time. Sounds simple enough, but it's, as you all know, it's incredibly complicated. What is the right good? What are the right goods? What are the right goods for your community? Are the GAF shingles from LA a good use in Tennessee? Maybe, probably not, but maybe. We always make sure that we're asking those questions. Oftentimes donors have great intent, but they don't necessarily understand the contracting rules and regulations and the stuff that you all have to deal with on a daily basis. The right people, are we making sure that we're finding the right nonprofit who's there pre-disaster and going to be there not just for the weeks after to raise money and then leave, but is really invested in that community and staying long-term? And then right time, are we providing the right product at the right time? Are we overwhelming a community? Are we trying to check all our boxes for our grantees when we raise funding and saying, all right, met our goals, done? Or are we really committed to staying in that community and investing more if that's what it takes than what we've received? Next slide. So in 2021, we provided roughly $62 million worth of product for more than 20 recovery efforts. Those include the ones that you've heard of on the radio, TV, internet, but also include a lot of low attention disasters. We're fortunate in Good360 in that we do receive a lot of discretionary funding. It's not unlimited, so don't get too excited, but we do receive more discretionary funding than other nonprofits might for these undeclared or low attention disasters, however you want to frame it. They're disasters that impact your community that aren't on CNN, that you struggle to get the attention and the product for. That's really where our hearts are, and that's where we really want to support. We recognize that we need to play the game, right, of the Harveys and the Marias, and to get the attention and get the product. But we really try to pivot as much as we can to helping the smaller communities, those disasters that aren't named. And again, right goods, right people, right time. Next slide. So those are just some examples of our impact. I will stop here for a second and just let you know that one of the key differences between our core product, which Janet referenced, and disaster is that we are largely grant-based. And through that grant-based and that grant funding, we have an opportunity to not charge an administrative fee if you're using product for a disaster. So we absorb through grant funding and other streams of funding, as well as the fact that most donors are willing to assist with shipping costs post-disaster. We absorb all the warehousing costs. We absorb all the transportation costs for that event, as long as it's an event that we're funded for or that we just have it extra funding in our budget available. That's a key differentiator between our core work and our disaster work. I suspect the question is going to be, what's a disaster? Great question, Damien. So that's something that's something we're working on. It's honestly hard, and it's money because everything is a disaster to the person that's impacted, right? So that's something we always struggle with. Obviously, for the things that you're seeing on the screen, those are all events that we received funding for, donors supported. The way that we kind of decide whether or not we're going to activate is there funding available? Are the donors reaching out saying, hey, we have product, we want to help? Is it on their radar? Are you as nonprofits, are you reaching out saying, hey, this happened, we need help? Things like that. Next slide. That's just a very truncated list of our over 400 corporate partners. We're always looking to grow our nonprofit base, our nonprofit capacity, whether in disaster or otherwise. And we really want to focus on resilience. How do we build a resilient nation? We do a little, keyword being little, internationally. I say that with the caveat of Ukraine, because we are pretty heavily invested in Ukraine right now. But our primary focus to date has been on domestic. And when we do international, we ensure that we're providing the product domestically, and then we rely on our nonprofit partners for that second mile of getting it international, because that's just not our sweet spot. That was a lot. Questions, concerns, comments, thoughts, ideas?
And these are our donors for both core
Yeah.
and disaster recovery. And of course, you know, we will share our donors, and of course donors, they want to give in blue skies and in gray skies. So
Yeah.
they are like Damien said, this is just a sample of some of our largest partners. So,
And some will, like Lowe's, just as an example, provided maybe 150, 175 truckloads of appliances. A couple months ago, they wanted 40 truckloads specifically to go to Kentucky. And then the rest we were free to distribute to the rest of our network. GAF provides shingles. They do that on a quarterly basis. So something that's important to know is we don't regularly have the same inventory available. It's largely reliant upon our donor. That's something I honestly did not realize and was ignorant to. I just figured, oh, Good360, they'll have good shingles whenever I need them. We get them quarterly. What we get and how we get it and exactly when we get it, that all depends. Bed Bath & Beyond, they're really nimble and agile. There was that fire that some of you may have seen in the Bronx, that apartment fire. They were able to react really quickly to get clothing and, I'm sorry, not clothing, like bedding and things like that. Whereas other partners might take months. Typically, we want at least like a 6-month lead time between which we're getting the information from you all as nonprofits and communicating to donors, this is what we need, and kind of setting the expectation of arrival. I'll shut up now, I promise. Questions?
I'm curious if any of our members on the call have used Good360 and could give us a little like case study of how it's worked for you, what you've gotten. I know TCAC is a redistribution center. That's great. Anybody else on the call today have experience with Good360?
Show of hands, how many of you, aside from Kelsey, had heard of Good360 before this call?
oh, you got one.
Yeah, we're members, and so I think mostly we've gotten like people donate through it. I feel like it's one of those, maybe not, but we've been members. We haven't really used it, and now looking through it, at least West Virginia distributor, their website's been hacked, and so it doesn't work. So I mean, that's something for you to know. And when I search it, it doesn't really give me another website option for our community redistributor there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to look through. We are not at a size where a pallet of random construction supplies is going to be useful to us, especially when I hear a lot of it's plumbing or things like that. So I know we'll just have to maybe keep an eye on it. So I don't know if there's a way for like a distribution list or notifications, or if you really just have to be attentive to the website. How would you find out something is coming in?
I'll speak to that, Damien. That's a really great question, Allison. Thank you for that. So once, you know, it's similar to other e-commerce platforms, we have an opt-in email communication distribution, a monthly newsletter, right? So we're constantly sending out emails to our network saying, check this out, right? Especially in the truckload program, we'll send it out to the entire truckload community as long as you're within, you know, a shipping radius of that product. So it would be great if we could make that catalog a little bit more user friendly. And that's definitely one of the biggest goals that we're encountering on for 2022 is the whole member experience, right? We want to make sure that is easily for all of our nonprofits to know what we have when we have it, and then get access to those products in a way that is efficient and low cost. So I think for now, usually what we'll hear is check the catalog, go to the website, see what we have. And it is a relatively user-friendly catalog. It's, you know, different departments or different types of product you go and you can see what you have, but definitely something that we want to get really better at.
Anybody else have a question to ask or experience to share? Kelsey, can you talk just a little bit more about what it looks like for you guys being redistribution point?
Sure. We do have some of the relationships like with Walmarts. We do some pickups at some local Walmarts. And we also get truckloads in as well. We recently got in a truckload from Lowe's that was all bathroom vanities. So we're distributing those to some houses. We actually build houses as well here. And then we have a lot of partners as well that do housing. So that's one of the most recent things we got in. We've done the Granger truckloads before, but we've just kind of built a network of nonprofits in our area. We keep up with them through a private Facebook page. And so we're able to kind of keep up with them through there. They can request if there's things they're looking for, things that they need for their programs. They reach out to us and we try to help them find what they need. Right now, we don't charge any of the nonprofits any kind of fees or anything. So they just come to us, tell us what they need, and we try to keep an eye out for them, or we'll have some that will come. We also have a store that's kind of separate from that. So they'll come in and see our store manager, and then she can take them back to our Good360 section that we have to keep separate, of course. But so we can kind of do it that way too. So we've had a relationship with Good360 for several years, and it's been a good relationship. So we really appreciate being partners with them.
Thanks for the plug, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Hey, I will kind of add to that if possible. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Shannon. Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. I work at TCAC as well, and I'm really glad that we got on this call because I've been there a couple of years, but never kind of got to hear the background of Good360 other than like, you know, what just everybody says. So it's kind of cool to, I guess, get the presentation, if you will. But I have been able to help with some of that distribution, and just how cool it is to partner with a lot of the agencies in our community, like the Humane Society. Sometimes we get animal supplies. So I remember like a couple of years ago, we got a truck that had a lot of open bags of dog food and some beds and things like that. So it was really cool to donate to those type agencies. We have a couple of pregnancy resource centers in our community. And so when we've gotten diapers, being able to donate that stuff to them. And just, I used to work in another nonprofit that solely survived on donations. So when you can help in those areas, it's just a blessing to be able to help them. So it's really cool to partner with you guys. I told everybody it's kind of like being Santa Claus. You get to go, oh, here's you, or Oprah, you know, here's you something, and here's you something, and here's you something. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to be the giver of those things. And you know, we did just get like a week or so ago the shipment of the vanities, and so Becca, that's something that Kelsey and I had talked about. We needed to reach out to you guys to see. I know, because being a new partner with you, but kind of contacting some of the resources that you guys have, because we have a lot of vanities, lot of vanities. So, but yeah, it's really cool. It's great to get to partner with you guys.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I see
Yep.
Joel has a hand raised.
It might
I
have
don't
been from earlier. We asked.
That
That was
go
from
ahead,
earlier. I'm good.
So you've heard a good 360. That's not, I have a question.
Bill.
I just, something that Shannon said that I wanted to make sure that we also mention is that we will provide you with the fair market value of the donations that you receive. So then you can then use, and you, frankly, if you're not, you should be using that fair market value, whether it's through Good 360 or otherwise, as well as volunteer hours when you're writing grants, when you're, whether federal funding grant opportunities or state or other nonprofit or philanthropy. They're always wanting to see what are the other investments that are being made. And we have a lot of partners that will ask us for the FMV if we don't provide it. For DR, it's not an automated system, so we have to do it manually at this point, but we're working on that. So just also want to provide that as well.
Thank you. I know we're a little bit over on our time, so I'm going to do a quick closing announcements, but if anybody has questions, feel free to hang around. I'll be here for a little longer as well. So thank you, Damien. Thank you, Janet. This is awesome. Hope we get a bunch of our members signing up with you guys and accessing these donations. Also, the coalition has a ton of upcoming events. If you haven't checked out the events calendar on our website or in our email that went out this morning, please do. Next week, we've got a Reframe Washington event. That's an advocacy education event. And then in the beginning of April, we have a brand new fundraising cohort that's launching. And we have a whole series of 7 different webinars in April. We're calling it Spring Scrums, where it's an interesting style of a roundtable format, and lots of other events coming up as well. So please check out our calendar and register for anything you're interested in. So this officially concludes, but if you do have any questions, feel free to hang out for a few more minutes. So thank you all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.